What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Morning Grind, presented by rotogrinders.com. I'm your host, Stevie TPFL, ready to talk some baseball on this wonderful Wednesday morning. Actually, it's nighttime on Tuesday for me, but that's just because I like getting this podcast out to you guys early in the morning or late at night. Depends on however you like it. We're going to be talking about the 6-game slate in the morning slate, and then Dan will touch on the late game slate in the Fantasy Fix podcast. That way you guys can kind of get an idea of where we're at in the morning time. I got a special guest with me today, Chris Lowry, Pepsi 7. How are you doing, my friend?
I am fantastic, buddy. Happy to have baseball season here and be talking about it.
Yeah, man, I'm excited that baseball's back. Opening day was okay for me. Wasn't great, wasn't terrible. But it looks like tonight's going to be a lot better. I have a lot of teams doing very well tonight.
Yeah, baseball season's been good so far to me. I tend to calm down a little bit early on because I get excited and try to play just a little bit because you know that it can be tricky early on trying to figure out who's batting where and what pitchers are healthy and whatnot. But so far, so good. Mostly thanks to the Giants on opening day and, of course, Detroit so far tonight.
Yeah, man, for sure. So let's get into this morning slate. We got a 6-game slate here. Pretty nice slate. A lot of gas cans, as you would say in your video, that you can find here on Roto Grinders. Let's look at, the Toronto and Tampa game. J.A. Happ against Matt Moore, two left-handed pitchers here, and two teams that hit left-handed pitching very well. We'll start with the pitching. Anything you want here with Happ or Moore?
Unless you're playing on a site like DraftKings, you're looking for a second pitcher. I think both these guys are guys you can fade in your cash games, perhaps GPP only. Both these guys do have strikeout upside, but they're facing tough teams. Tampa Bay is a pretty patient team and doesn't strike out a whole lot, and they can, of course, match up a lot of righties versus Happ. So that's going to be a struggle for him. And same with Matt Moore. He's got some strikeout upside there. When the Jays are capable of striking out, Archer struck out 12 on opening day, and Smiley struck out a pile of 2 versus them. So they can strike out, but we know how lethal they are when they do make contact. And Matt Moore looked a little better in his last couple of starts. This is still a guy coming back from Tommy John surgery, so he's quite risky to me. I guess if you're looking at a multi-pitcher set like DK, perhaps Happ is your second guy if you're looking to load up. But overall, I think these guys are GPP only, and possibly we can pick on some of these guys with some bats today.
Yeah, I don't like Happ or Moore. If Moore was facing anybody besides Toronto, I think he'd be an option. But as you know, being up there, Toronto is pretty good against left-handed pitching. So, Matt Moore last season, he only faced right-handed batters 41 innings, allowed a 375 WOBA. Happ, on the other hand, 307 WOBA and 128 innings. So both of these guys, guys that we could pick on. So let's pick on them a little bit. I'll let you start it off with your Blue Jays here.
Yeah, pretty much everybody in that order is in play. Obviously the knowns, Tulowitzki, Donaldson, Encarnacion, Batista, all the mashes are in play. They all hit left-handed pitching very well. A couple of sneaky options that are a little cheaper, though, that are less obvious. Russell Martin, for one, probably won't be in the lineup. I think tomorrow's pretty much going to be backup punt catcher day with all the starters being off. But if Martin gets to start, obviously he's in play. But Kevin Pillar leading off has done very well. A little bit of pop, a little bit of speed at the top of the order there. And Chris Colabello as well hits lefties much better than righties. And both these guys are fairly cheap in a deep, potent Blue Jay lineup.
Yeah, I don't mind that as well. And Pillar, I think, picked up a base in the game tonight on Tuesday night. So always got that stolen base upside, so I think he's in play for that. Josh Donaldson, one of the top plays on the board for me. Anytime Donaldson faces a left-handed pitcher, he's already at the top of my list. So one thing that stands out to me, especially on FanDuel, Tulowitzki's price tag at only $3,500. I think he's an excellent play. I think he's going to be highly owned in this morning slate for cash games. Let's talk some Rays. Tampa Bay, man, in my home state of Florida. So we get like a state versus state battle here, Pepsi.
Yes, we do. Home and home matchup, you could also say. But, Tampa Bay's in play, of course. They're going to find a way to get a lot of righties in that lineup. Obviously, Longoria, probably the top player there. But there's quite a few guys that have GPP upside. Or if, you've built a casket lineup and you love it, you're looking for some value. Guys like Logan Forsythe, Desmond Jennings, Steven Souza, all in play, and perhaps a guy like Brendan Guyer even gets into that lineup. Of course, the only problem is, Stevie, as usual, how many at-bats are these guys going to get? I think Jennings and Longoria are pretty safe, and even Forsythe proved last season he could hit righties and probably stays in there. But some of these value guys from the Rays are hard to keep in that lineup because they might see only 2 or 3 at-bats.
Yeah, if Forsythe stays in the top two spots, he's led off the first two games here. If he stays in that top spot, 3,100, definitely a guy that I'm going to have in cash games. 405 Woba with a 299 ISO against left-handed pitching last year. Just mashed left-handed pitching. And like you said, Longoria is extremely cheap across the industry, and he's definitely in play. Guys like Geyer, they're really risky because, like what you said, they might only get one or two at bats, maybe three at the most. There's too much depth on this Rays team, so it makes it tough to play guys like that. So it's going to be Longoria, it's going to be Forsythe for me in this lineup, and I'm okay with just taking those two guys.
Yeah, I can see that. It's certainly less risk adverse in that case.
All right, we got San Francisco Giants at Milwaukee. Another 1 o'clock game here. Samardzija against Youngman. The Shark, man, first start here in the Giants uniform. He's standing out to me. What are your thoughts here?
Well, that Milwaukee team, I think we're going to be able to pick on all season long. You know, it's full of AAA players and a few veterans that probably won't be there for very long, like Jonathan LaCroix. So I think this is a team we'll pick on all season long. Despite the hitter's park, I don't think they're going to hit for average. They're going to strike out quite a bit. So really anybody facing them is in play. And not to mention that bullpen's pretty bad. Their starting staff's bad. So the opposing team is going to provide the pitcher with run support as well here. So Samardzija obviously had a rough year in Chicago last year. I think a lot of people have him on their sleeper list this year to bounce back. Very talented pitcher, got the high K rate. I like him today. His price is reasonable. At $8,600 over here in FanDuel, I think that's very reasonable. I think the win's a lock. I think he can go 6 or 7 innings, and I think he can get a K per inning. So a lot to like with the Shark.
Yeah, I like the Shark a lot. I think he's a top 3 player for me as far as pitchers go. 6-game slate, you got to pick your spots, and this is a spot that I think I'm going to pick on. Like you said, the Brewers not a team we're really going to fear this year. Shark really struggled against left-handed bats last year. 357 Woba against lefties last year. XFIP, everything was just massive. Hard contact rate. He really struggled against lefties. The good thing for him is the Brewers have 2 lefties, I think. So it's not one of those things where you really got to be worried about lefties because they don't have any. And I don't want anything to do with Youngman. The Giants have been really good against right-handed pitching now for 2 seasons, and not a team that I'm going to pick on with righties this year.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Giants just not necessarily a team that's going to explode like they did in opening day for 12 runs, but they're just a real tough team to face. They don't strike out a lot. They're the National League version almost of the Kansas City Royals. They don't strike a lot. They take pitchers deep into counts. They work themselves on base. They'll single, walk, and W to death. And that lineup is very, very deep. I mean, Angel Pagan is hitting last. Brendan Crawford is hitting 7th in that lineup. And that, those 2 guys could easily be 1-2. So that's a tough lineup. And again, you break out all the lefties versus Youngman this one. I mean, Denard Span at top that order, multi-hit machine up there. Panic, a great price at second base. And, of course, a little deeper, Brandon Belt's got some pop at first base there. And all these guys are very reasonable priced.
Yeah, I love Panic again for cash games. It's going to be down to Forsythe and Panic for me. It'd be down more roster construction. Their price is really close. I'll probably lead Forsythe over Panic, but I'm not going to hate you if you play Panic. Another tournament option that I like in this game is Scooter. Scooter has proven himself to be a good hitter here for a good portion of last year. And, spring, he hit the ball well. So Scooter's a guy at 2,700. I think he's a good tournament option. Like we said, the Shark really struggled against lefties last year.
Yeah, the only problem with Scooter is, 2 things actually. Where he's going to hit in the order. Hopefully he's in that 2 spot or perhaps even leading off. But he could also be 7th or 8th. And the other question, of course, is how many at-bats he's going to get. But like you said, tournament option, not a cash game option. He's certainly got the home run upside to pay off at that price.
Yeah, and like you said, you really want to pay attention to catchers on this slate today. So luckily, all the lineup should be out before lock. The only one you might have to worry about is the Boston-Cleveland game. And they've only played 1 game, so their starting catchers should start in that game. Make sure Posey's in the lineup. He should be. I like Brandon Belt again, 3,200. Good matchup, great ballpark. He's a guy that I think you can play at first base once again tonight.
Yeah, he's a cash game option. He's a very good hitter. Had a very quietly, surprisingly great season last year. A lot of guys really on him. Great tournament play as well because he's just a guy that's not real sexy in DFS. So guys tend to avoid him. He's under-owned a lot, but hits right-handed pitching very well, and he's got a boost in that ballpark in Milwaukee.
All right, let's swing it on over to Seattle at Texas. Two gas cans here, man. Colby Lewis and Wade Miley. What a pitcher's duel this is going to be. I'll let you start by telling me how much you like both of these pitchers today.
There are times, actually, where Colby Lewis is intriguing in a GPP situation, but it's certainly not in this matchup here. And Wade Miley, I don't think he was as bad as he was in Boston, but this is an average pitcher at best. So, yeah, we can certainly pick on both these guys, especially in that ballpark.
Yeah, going to be picking on these guys quite a bit. Colby Lewis last year, 33% hard contact rate, very small swinging strike percentage. He's a guy I want to pick on, and the same goes for Miley. He's another guy where he actually induces pretty good medium contact, doesn't give up a lot of hard contact, but, looking at this lineup, there's a guy named Nelson Cruz who just blasted a home run, and I like him against Colby Lewis in this game.
Yeah, I like a lot of Seattle bats against him. Nelson Cruz, obviously one of them, but Robinson Cano and Kyle Seager are two must-play mates more in cash games. Both reasonably priced over there in FanDuel, hitting 2 and 4 or 3 and 5 in that lineup, and they both just smashed Colby Lewis over their careers, and they both smashed right-handed pitching as well. So, not to mention, we mentioned the ballpark, but Texas bullpen, not that great either. Neither is Seattle. So we're certainly going to see runs in this game, I think, but really, 3, 4, 5 in that Seattle order are almost must-plays tonight, or today, I should say. And even the top of the order, Stevie, we got some interesting value here. Perhaps Aoki and Marte at the top of that order again, pretty cheap, and I think they can both get on base and cause some havoc. And Adam Lind could be in that order, maybe protecting Kyle Seager. We know what he does to right-handed pitching as well.
Yeah, this is a good spot to target Lind. I was going to mention him. Glad you brought him up. He's definitely a guy at $2,500 first baseman with upside of $3,500 4K player. So I like Adam Lind a lot in tournaments. I think he's an excellent option. If Aoki is leading off, he's really cheap as well. The problem is I don't know if we're going to need the salary to really necessarily punt that far down, but I think they're good plays. And then looking at the other side of things, I think one of the best plays on the board is Delano DeShields Jr. Gets a matchup with Miley, and this guy hit left-handed pitching well, and he should be in the top 2 spots.
Absolutely love DeShields. Probably leading off, $2,800 over in the FanDuel. Love it. Beltre is another guy that I love. I know he's a better hitter versus right-handed hard-throwing pitchers than he is versus lefties, but this is a guy that really salvaged the second half of last season, had a good spring, and I don't think he's done just yet. So Beltre might also fly under the radar tonight a little bit, especially in GPPs. But those are the two guys I'm looking at the most. And, again, some more value to be had. Maybe Justin Roggiano gets in that game. And, of course, Ian Desmond's got Jack in a bag upside there, probably batting around the 6th spot for the Rangers.
All right. Let's move it on over to Colorado, Arizona, one of the best ballparks in baseball to target hitters in outside of Rogers Field and Coors Field. So this is a matchup here where we got Patrick Corbin, really good against lefties, not so good against righties, and then a guy, Tyler Chatwood, who will be making his first appearance since 2014. Elbow issues, a guy that's going to be coming back from the minors. Nothing I really like here. I might play Corbin on some tournament teams. It all depends on if the Rockies stay with that really left-handed lineup or not.
Yeah, Corbin's certainly interesting. We a couple of years ago before he went down with Tommy John surgery, we've seen his upside. And the kid's talented. I don't think the K rate's going to be there necessarily, but the Rockies are a team they've shown over the years that can really strike it a lot on the road. Problem is, this is kind of a hitter-friendly park, too, in Chess Field, like big time. So yeah. I'm a little nervous about that. The Rockies are still a good lineup, and they got some punch from the right-handed side as well. So I think I'm fading both these guys, and I don't even mind picking on Corbin a little bit until I see him come back and be healthy, as we mentioned, just coming back from Tommy John last year. And Tyler Chatwood, I mean, this is a guy you definitely want to pick on, including that Rockies bullpen once they send this guy to the shower. So I think this guy could be, if not he could be at least a candidate for gas can of the night.
So let's talk about the Rockies bats first. First name that jumps off the board at you has to be Arenado. Lefty-righty matchup, $4,700 price tag is steep. Is he worth that price tag in this matchup?
Jeez, I don't know that he is, just because I believe Corbin is a decent pitcher. I guess it depends. If you got the room to pay up for an Arenado, absolutely. I think he's a better tournament play, because if you can pay up and afford anybody, I think I'm going to lean with Donaldson, as you mentioned, the lefty killer versus Moore there, or even go down a little bit with a Kyle Seager at 34. So Arenado, for me, just a tournament play because there are better options, I think, at the high dollar and the mid-tier range. But certainly is in play in this. And another guy I want to talk to you about, the story of spring training and the early season is Trevor Story, another right-handed bat, multi-homer game last night versus Greinke. And now he's batting 2 in this spot. I mean, how long before we get him, how long can we keep getting him at this price, I should say?
I hope he stays at this price. I've talked about him on every single podcast that I've done so far. I absolutely love this kid. I think he's the real deal. Massive power upside, and you get a guy under 3K at this ballpark against this type of pitcher batting second. Sign me up, man. I think he's cash game playable. I used him in cash here on Tuesday night.
Yeah, absolutely is cash game playable, and at that price, it's almost a must play, I think. Aside from those two right-handed bats, I mean, obviously Cargo hits lefties just fine, and so does Blackman. Not an ideal matchup, but in a tournament, I think Cargo's still in play there, and even a guy like Mark Reynolds has got some pretty big pop for a punt first baseman play. But like you said, for the most part, I don't think you really need to punt that position. But in a tournament, if you're loading up elsewhere, guys like Lind and Reynolds certainly have home run upside.
One name I want to throw at you real quick, one of the offseason additions for the Rockies this offseason, and it was like a late March edition, but it was Ryan Rayburn, who we know mashes left-handed pitching, $2,500, a guy that had a 423 WOBA with a massive 265 ISO against left-handed pitching last year. Should be in the lineup. If they get to the bullpen, probably won't see a lot of at-bats, but the upside's certainly there at 2,500.
Yeah, I'm a big Ryan Rayburn fan. He's another guy that I don't understand why he's never come around. Danny Valencia was that guy until last year when he started hitting right-handed pitching. But I watch Rayburn hit. I watch his approach at the plate. I just don't understand why he isn't a more productive hitter versus lefties and righties. But, yes, a guy that I love to use in a platoon. Like you said, he's got that home run upside. And who knows how long he stays in there, but $2,500 in a GPP, I'm interested.
One of the top options of the day, obviously, is Paul Goldschmidt. It's all roster construction for me when it comes to Goldschmidt. If I can get him in my lineup, I usually play him, and I don't think twice about it. So I like him a lot, and I like David Peralta in this matchup. And Tomas is a guy that I used on opening day, and I'll go back to the well until he gets over that 3K price tag.
Yeah, all those guys certainly in play, cash game playable. Pretty much 3/4 of that Arizona lineup is cash game playable because they're cheap to moderately priced. And again, Tyler Chatwood, a terrible pitcher for the most part, and a bad bullpen there. So value coming up, value as well. Love Goldschmidt, obviously. I'm like you. If I can work him in, great. Don't have to have him. And a GPP, that's kind of where I'm more likely to spend up and get him. David Peralta, mashes righties. Absolutely love him. Wellington Castillo, probably another catcher that's not going to start after playing tonight. But Jake Lamb's a guy that's dirt cheap, batting the 6th spot. He's got big power. I like him. You mentioned as many Tomas. But the top of that order as well, John Segura's got a multi-run, multi-steal upside. And Socrates Brito, maybe the best non-nickname in all of baseball. He's also dirt cheap with quite a bit of speed. Not much power in him, but both those guys at the top of the order, decent punt options if you're looking for salary relief and maybe looking for a stolen base and a couple runs.
Yeah, if Beef sits, I can see Jake Lamb actually getting a bump in the lineup. So I think he's an even better play if that happens. So I like Jake Lamb at 2,400. If Castillo sits, we could see Lamb in that 5 spot. And I like the other guys you touched on. I think you target this game pretty heavy and be okay. Well, let's let the cat out of the bag here. Jose Fernandez against Detroit at Miami, and Anibal Sanchez on the other side of the hill against Miami at home. Jose Fernandez, do you take him against a really strong Tigers lineup?
Absolutely. I mean, Jose Fernandez, you could argue that in one game he's the best pitcher in baseball. And not necessarily, you could argue that with pretty much anybody, but I should say on a game-to-game basis, he's not going to pitch the same amount of innings. They're not going to push him, but per inning, you could argue he's the best pitcher in baseball. So he's still the guy for me. Obviously, there's some merit to Carlos Carrasco, who we'll get to later on in a tough matchup. And we talked about the Shark, Jeff Samardzija. But Jose Fernandez at home has been absolutely dominant throughout his entire career, and I don't even care who he's facing. I realize it's the Tigers, and they got some pretty good thump, but most of it's from the right side. They will strike out. They'll have the pitcher in there and not the hitter, so there's a bit of an advantage for Jose Fernandez. And that ballpark, monstrous. I know they moved the fences in a little bit, but that's still a pitcher's haven there. So for me, unless I can't possibly get a cask and run together that I love with Fernandez, he is going to be my ace tomorrow.
Yeah, no reason that he shouldn't be. The one thing that kind of worries me, especially on FanDuel, is the win is so important. And a guy like Sanchez could pitch a good game against the Marlins lineup outside of Stanton, who is pretty weak. So, the win is always questionable, but, there's not many pitchers that we say that has 10 strikeout upside every time he takes the hill. He's a guy that 64 innings last year had a 29.8% strikeout rate. It's massive. The kid his stuff is electric. And pretty much everything you said, I agree with. Honestly, I'm going to have a tough time not playing the Shark and Cash because of the price difference, but I have no issue if you want to pay up for Jose Fernandez. Let's get your thoughts on Sanchez here.
This is a tough one for me because I've always liked Anibal Sanchez as a pitcher. I know he struggled a lot last year, but lefty's still had trouble with that changeup against him, and righty's him a little bit better. But there's not a lot of righty thump in that Marlin lineup outside of Giancarlo Stanton, of course, who can pretty much hit anybody anywhere. So I think if he can get around Stanton, perhaps he keeps Gordon off base more than once or twice, I think he could be okay here. I'm really just not looking to pick on Anibal Sanchez, nor am I really looking to roster him. I mean, I guess Stanton's in play because he always is, but I don't love it. And again, Gordon, of course, can get on base and steal, but I don't know what version of Sanchez we're going to get. I don't know if he's declining already. I don't know if I expect him to bounce back based on last year's numbers. I'm just kind of confused with Stanton, and that's going to happen a lot of times early in the season with guys like this who are coming off an injury or a poor season. You're kind of wondering where they're going to go. So for me, he's kind of one of those guys I don't looking to pick on him, also not looking to roster him. What are your thoughts on him?
He's a guy that gives up a massive fly ball rate. So with that being said, with the high fly ball rate, this is a great ballpark for him because it's just, it's like 394 to right center and like 384 to left center. It's a massive ballpark. They moved in the fences, but it didn't change anything as far as it being a pitcher's park. So if there was a spot that I was going to target him in, this is not a terrible spot to look at him. If you're looking in tournaments, I wouldn't touch him in cash games. But I think at 7,900, there's some merit to playing him in tournaments because a lot of people are going to be playing Jose Fernandez. So if the Tigers get to Fernandez, Sanchez picks up the win, you could be sitting, pretty good against a lot of these guys in tournaments. So I don't mind that. And then looking at the away team's bats, Detroit's bats against Fernandez, you going to touch any of them?
No, I'm not interested. To me, people say, well, in tournaments, anybody's a play. Anybody's a great GPP play. I totally disagree. Sure, at some point this season, Fernandez is going to get touched up a little bit, maybe even blown up once. I don't think it happens, but he'll definitely be touched up at some point. But to me, that's a waste of money and entries. I mean, the odds on the Tigers getting to him and having, scoring 4 or 5 runs, having a multi-homer game in that park versus him are just so minuscule that I'm not even going to bother, man. I am not interested in any opposition, regardless of who it is and what ballpark, versus Jose Fernandez all season.
Yeah, absolutely dominated right-handed pitching in the short innings that he faced last year, 39 innings, 199 WOBA. Dominate him. It's not, a matchup that I'm going to target any hitters in as well. I think Stanton's in play, and I think Stanton's in play any night. He's just a massive guy. Any night he takes the ballpark, he has a chance to hit a home run.
Absolutely does. And that's a great GPP option. Like I said, with Sanchez struggling versus righties and people probably not paying up for him in that ballpark there. So I think he's under-owned, to be honest, Stanton. But, again, I just don't know what to think of Sanchez. I'm really intrigued to watch him pitch and see what he's like this season. But a guy that, in general, I'm not looking to stack against by any means.
Boston at Cleveland again here. Carlos Carrasco, Clay Buchholz. Interesting game because all the talk surrounding Buchholz is he's going to pitch better this year, and he's got his stuff worked out this spring. I'll take the wait-and-see approach on Buchholz. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, see, another guy that I thought should be better, Buchholz, and I can see him bouncing back. This is a pretty good spot for him, really. I mean, he's a guy that I think at times you could pick on, but Cleveland doesn't look very good to me. They're a little banged up right now. Obviously, Michael Brantley's still a lineup, and really there's not a whole lot of thump in that lineup that scares me right now. I mean, Napoli and Santana aren't doing a whole lot. Lindor's look good, and Kipnis, both those guys scare me a little bit. But overall, I don't mind Buchholz in this matchup. I think that his strikeout upside is a little limited in this one, so I don't see a whole lot of upside there. On the other hand of it, you got Carlos Carrasco who you're facing. who's also another tough pitcher. So is the win there? I don't know. I think if I'm going to take anybody this game, I lean Carrasco. Don't love the matchup for him, but I'm a huge fan of Carrasco. He has massive K potential, and I think he's one of the best young arms in the game. Actually, he's not young, 29 now, but one of the best arms in the game. So this is not a guy I'm really looking to pick on either. So another neutral game for me, where I don't know what I'm going to roster either of these guys, perhaps Carrasco in a tournament, but I'm not really looking to pick on these guys either.
Yeah, Carrasco has the same type of numbers as a guy like Fernandez, almost identical strikeout rates, and actually has a higher swinging strike rate than Fernandez. So if you want a guy that's got massive upside and you don't want to pay the price for Fernandez, Carrasco's a guy where if he can get around Big Papi, he could work through this lineup and really rack up the strikeouts on an aggressive Red Sox team.
Yeah, Red Sox still scare me, but they get so many weapons in that lineup. And when you really dig into it and look at how Carrasco owns right-handed batters, and like you said, a free-swinging, aggressive Red Sox team, really the only guy there that's really a threat is Big Papi. Obviously, Mookie Betts is a tough guy to get out, and Bogarts is also a tough out as well. But other than that, there are strikeouts there. So Carrasco, I love in tournaments. He's got, double-digit K upside every time he takes the mound, and certainly sneaky in this one. I think that a lot of people are going to look at Fernandez. Everybody's talking about Smarja, but Carrasco, because of the fact he's faced in Boston, I think that he could be in the lower tier there for percentage owned.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. I said there was 3 pitchers that I liked. We talk about Shark, we talk about Fernandez, and Carrasco's that last guy that I'm going to be targeting here on this early 6-game slate. I love this slate. I think it's a great slate for tournaments, and I think it's a cash game playable slate. There's a lot of options here, so. Any bats that you want from Cleveland or Boston in this game outside of David Ortiz?
Yeah, Big Papi, obviously interesting in a tournament. I don't have to have him, though, because like I said, I'm a big fan of Carrasco. I don't look to pick on him there. So other than that, I'm not really looking for much there. I think Mookie Betts could be sneaky because he can do just about everything. We know, a guy can hit a double, steal a base, hit a home run. He has that big upside. It can generate points in so many ways. I think he's in play as well on a GPP. And on the Cleveland side, other than Kipnis and Lindor, 2 guys that could have multi-hit games or even multi-steal games, that's really all about it. But again, it's GPP only for me. I just don't see the upside of picking on either of these pitchers in what should be a cold game in Cleveland again.
Yeah, both these pitchers in play. Like you mentioned, Kipnis is the one guy that stands out to me at 3K, but you got Forsythe, you got Panic. You don't have to have Kipnis in this bad matchup with a lot of cold weather, not ideal for hitters. So I don't think you have to go to Kipnis here. So, man, that's pretty much it. 6 games, not a problem at all. It's a really nice slate. Dan's going to talk about the late slate on the Daily Fantasy Fix podcast that usually goes up between 10 and 11:30 on the East Coast. Pepsi, I know we can find you on the bump, man. You got anything else going on?
Yeah, writing a GPP article every Tuesday and Friday for Roto World and Roto Grinders, and doing the Grinders Live show as well as some incentive picks for a few sites, DraftKings, FanDuel, and Fantasy Aces.
All right, and they can follow you on Twitter at Pepsi7DFS. Chris Lowry, thank you for joining me, my friend. It's always a pleasure to talk baseball with you. And I'm Stevie TPFL. We'll be back tomorrow talking some more baseball with another special guest. And you guys have a good luck in your early slate, and we'll see you then.